There is a moment most men never speak about out loud. You are somewhere ordinary, a cafe, a gathering, a sidewalk, and a younger woman looks at you. Not through you, not past you, at you. And something in you responds before your mind can intervene. And then your mind intervenes hard. You tell yourself it was nothing, that she couldn't possibly, that whatever you felt was the product of wishful thinking, not reality. You tuck it away before it can embarrass you. You move on, but something lingers. That lingering is not delusion. It is not vanity. It is something your nervous system registered before your self doubt could drown it. And what it registered was real. This video is not going to tell you that age doesn't matter. That would be dismissive of something real. Age matters, but not in the way society has convinced you it does. The story you have been handed, the one that says you are automatically disqualified from genuine attraction because your birth year falls outside some invisible, acceptable range. That story is not psychology. It is noise, and it has cost a lot of men something they deserve to understand. There is one reason deeper than confidence, deeper than success, deeper than anything surface or strategic, that a younger woman keeps returning to a man like you. We will get there. But first, you need to understand what she's not telling you because she probably doesn't have the language for it herself. She only knows how it feels. Let us start by clearing out the noise so you can actually hear what this is about. You already know the cultural response to this subject. You have seen it in raised eyebrows, heard it in questions designed not to explore, but to shame. Maybe you have internalized some of it yourself. The voice that says, "This is inappropriate, this is self-deception, this is something a man does because he cannot accept his own stage of life." That voice speaks with such confidence that most men simply accept it as truth. But here is what that voice never addresses. Attraction is not a social calculation. It is a nervous system event. And the nervous system does not consult a calendar before it responds. When a woman feels something toward a man, her body does not first pull up a spreadsheet. She is not running an algorithm that subtracts your age from hers and generates a compatibility score. What she is actually responding to at a level that precedes conscious thought is a set of signals. Signals about safety, signals about steadiness, signals about whether this man is present or performing, signals about whether being near him makes her feel more herself or less. Those signals have almost nothing to do with how old you are. They have everything to do with what you have become. The problem is not your age. The problem is that you have been trying to understand her response through a framework that was never designed to explain it. You have been measuring yourself against a standard built for a different kind of attraction, one based on speed and novelty and physical competition. And by that measurement, you will always come up short. But that is not the measurement she is using. The things you have been quietly apologizing for, the slowness, the gravity, the lack of urgency, the certainty you carry, these are not liabilities dressed up as virtues. They are the signal itself, and some women read that signal louder than anything else a man could offer. Here is what most men at any age fundamentally misunderstand about what is happening when an older man draws a younger woman in. They assume she is tolerating the gap, that she is making a compromise somewhere, trading something she would prefer for something else she values more, that eventually the gap will become a problem she can no longer manage. They imagine her attraction as partial, as contingent, as something with an expiration date written into it from the beginning. That is not what is happening. For many women, especially those who have moved past the early rush of purely novelty-driven attraction, the qualities that come with significant life experience are not secondary. They are primary. And the age gap itself, the years of survival and refinement it represents, is not the obstacle to her attraction. In many cases, it is precisely the source of it. Think about what age quietly builds in a man who has paid attention to his own life. It builds the ability to sit in a room without needing to own it. It builds the capacity to let a moment unfold without forcing it toward a predetermined outcome. It builds a kind of emotional weight, not heaviness, but gravity. The sense that this man has already survived enough that he is no longer trying to prove something, that he has somewhere to stand that does not require your applause to remain solid. Now, Think about what a woman's nervous system is looking for, not what her friends might approve of, not what performs well in a cultural context, what the part of her that operates below her conscious reasoning is actually seeking. It is seeking that gravity, that stillness, the presence of a man who has nothing to prove to her. The young man who walks into a room slightly competitive, slightly anxious to establish himself, slightly volatile in his humor. He is visible, he is energetic, and he can be compelling. But there is a different kind of man, the one who sits down, laughs quietly at something private, and does not explain himself. The one who is not scanning the room for approval, the one whose presence has a weight to it that does not demand anything in return. She notices that second man. She may not know immediately why, but she notices, and the first exhale begins. Now we move deeper because noticing is only the beginning. What keeps her there, by what turns a moment of noticing into something she finds herself thinking about days later, is something more specific. Her attraction is not rooted in aesthetics the way many men assume it must be, or rather, it is not only rooted there. For many women, especially those who have moved past their mid 20s, what registers most powerfully is not what a man looks like, but what it feels like to be near him. And the felt experience of being near him is constructed almost entirely from subtle subconscious signals. The pace of his speech, whether it is unhurried, not slow from lack of intelligence, but slow from the absence of anxiety. Whether he is speaking to communicate or to perform, whether there is space in his sentences, or whether they tumble forward in the compressed rhythm of a man who is afraid silence will cost him something, the quality of his gaze, whether it is present without being invasive, whether he looks at her as though she is someone worth actually seeing, not as a surface to be evaluated or an audience to be impressed. The absence of performance. This one is harder to name, but easier to feel. A man who is performing, who has adjusted himself for the occasion, who is presenting a version of himself calibrated for her approval, produces a kind of subtle friction in a woman's nervous system. She cannot always name it, but something in her is quietly working, constantly checking whether what she is receiving is real, and that work is tiring. It erodes the ease a connection needs to deepen. A man who is simply present, not performing, not managing his image, not monitoring her response to calibrate his next move, produces the opposite effect. The friction disappears, the quiet checking stops. She relaxes in ways she often does not even register consciously. She is in a conversation with him, and at some point she realizes she has not once checked her phone. She is not braced for a sharp comment, for a competing narrative, for the anxious undertow of a man who quietly needs her to confirm that he is enough. She has simply been here in the conversation, and something in her has been exhaling slowly without her permission. She does not know exactly what she is responding to, but she feels the difference in the different registers. There is another quality that older men often carry without realizing its power, and it is one of the most precise signals a woman's nervous system reads in the early stages of connection. It is his relationship with silence. Most men, particularly those who feel the pressure of making a strong impression, work hard to fill silence. They treat a pause in conversation as a problem to be solved, a gap to be bridged, an absence that reflects poorly on them. They chase the laugh, hurry to the next topic, reach for a story before the previous moment has fully settled. She tests silence early, not deliberately always, sometimes just by going quiet mid conversation or after something meaningful, or simply because she is thinking. And the way he holds that silence tells her something no amount of articulate speech ever could. A man who panics in silence is telling her that his inner world is not settled, that he needs the conversation to keep moving, because the stillness is uncomfortable for him, that he requires a certain level of stimulation and response to feel secure. A man who holds silence, who lets a moment breathe without compulsion, who does not rush to fill the space with noise, is telling her something entirely different. He is telling her that he is comfortable being here without anything to perform, that the space between words does not threaten him, that he does not need her constant engagement to feel okay. She goes quiet, he stays with it. He does not fidget verbally, he does not pivot, he simply holds the space present without pulling against it. She leans slightly forward. The duh became connection, not distance, and she felt it. This is not a technique. This cannot be faked in any sustained way. It is the natural byproduct of a man who has genuinely arrived somewhere in himself, who has accumulated enough living that the quiet no longer feels like emptiness. It feels like room. And this is where it becomes important to understand something that most men, younger or older, never fully grasp about what she is actually searching for when she allows herself to get close to someone. We have been building toward it. Everything up until now has been preparation for this. There's something beneath all the signals we have examined, beneath the stillness and the unhurried presence and the silence and the gravity, something that explains why those things matter and what they're pointing toward. We are about to go there. She is not naive about what she wants. The younger woman who finds herself drawn to a significantly older man, who allows herself to follow that pull past the cultural noise and into something real, she is, in most cases, not doing so from inexperience. She is doing so from information. Many of these women have already had the other version, the relationship that felt like the right age on paper and the wrong emotional texture in practice. The partnership where everything looked correct from the outside but required constant vigilance on the inside. The dynamic where love was present but emotional stability was not, where tenderness could turn unpredictable, where disagreement could become destabilizing, where she spent more time managing the mood of the connection than simply existing within it. She knows what that costs. Not theoretically in her body, she has felt the specific exhaustion of loving someone whose emotional architecture was still under construction. Not blaming him, just knowing with the kind of quiet certainty that only lived experience produces, that the texture of that was not what she wants to carry forward. When she encounters a man whose emotional structure is already built, who can disagree without escalating, who can hold a position without needing to win, who does not require constant emotional maintenance to remain stable. She does not respond to this with her head first. She responds with her nervous system, with relief, with the specific relaxation that comes when something you have been bracing for simply does not arrive. He disagrees with something she says, and instead of withdrawing, going cold, getting defensive, or pressing toward a victory that would cost the connection, he simply holds his ground calmly without making it mean something it doesn't need to mean, without needing her to capitulate in order for him to feel secure. She says to someone later, "He does not make me feel stupid. He is not threatened by me." That is not a small observation. That is her nervous system describing safety, the specific kind that most of the men she has been close to could not quite sustain for long. Not because they were bad, but because they had not yet arrived at the place where they could hold that kind of steadiness. She is not projecting a father figure onto him. She is not filling an archetypal need. She is making a clear-eyed recognition of something she has been looking for and had not found, and finding it in him. Slow down for a moment here, because what we are about to cover is the deepest layer of this entire subject, and it requires from you that the earlier parts did not. Not just understanding, but recognition. The recognition of something you may have been doing without realizing, and something you can stop. She is watching for one thing more than almost anything else. It is not your status, though that can be part of what creates the context for it. It is not your appearance, though presence shapes that. It is not even the steadiness we have been discussing, though that creates the conditions for it. What she is watching for is whether you will allow her to be herself fully, without managing herself, without it disturbing your equilibrium. Most men, without realizing it, create subtle pressure around women they are drawn to. Not deliberately, not maliciously, but the pressure is there. The pressure of their approval need, the way they lean slightly forward when she is warm and slightly back when she is difficult, the way their energy shifts when she says something unexpected or strong or contradictory, the way their comfort depends in some invisible way on her being easy to be near. She feels this even when she cannot name it. And in response, she begins to manage herself. She softens the edge of an opinion. She moderates a strong feeling. She monitors her own vividness so as not to tip the balance of his ease, and she gets smaller. The older man who has done enough internal work, who has arrived at a place of genuine self-possession, does not create that pressure. When she says something provocative, he does not flinch. When she is contradictory, he does not need to resolve her. When she brings a strong feeling into the room, he does not move away from it or try to fix it. He simply receives her. He does not try to manage her back to something easier to hold. He simply makes room. She says something half testing, half genuine, an opinion with an edge, and all she or on she is not entirely sure how to explain. She puts it out watching the way women do when they are checking whether it is safe to be real. He does not get defensive. He does not get quiet in a way that signals withdrawal. He does not pivot to something lighter to release the tension she was never trying to create. He simply receives what she said, holds it, responds from a place that is grounded and unfrightened, and she exhales deeper this time because she did not have to take that piece of herself back. This is what she has been waiting for, not a man who impresses her, a man she does not have to be smaller around. And now we reach the place this entire conversation has been moving toward. The thing that is not about age, the thing that was never about age at the deepest level of what she is experiencing, beneath the safety signals, beneath the emotional steadiness, beneath the stillness and the space he creates, she is asking one question, not consciously, not in words, but her nervous system is asking it constantly and it shapes everything. The question is, do I feel more myself when I am near this man? Not more impressive, not more desired in the surface sense, more herself, more fully inhabited, more like the version of herself that is interesting and uncertain and complex and alive, not the managed, moderated, socially safe version. This is what attraction at its deepest is actually measuring, not age, not achievement, not even chemistry in the conventional sense. The question her body is answering all the time is whether proximity to this person allows her to expand or requires her to contract. And what you have been building, without perhaps knowing that this was what you were building, is the capacity to be around, the capacity to be a presence that allows expansion. That is genuinely rare. At any age and any man, it is rare. She stops explaining herself around him. Not because she has nothing to say, but because she has stopped calculating whether what she has to say is too much. She laughs in a way she has not laughed in a long time. Not the curated laugh, but the unguarded one. Or she goes quiet in a way that feels like relief, not like absence. Not because he said something remarkable, not because he performed anything exceptional, but because nothing in him was pulling against her. The age gap at this level is simply not what is being measured. What is being measured is the felt experience of being near him, the safety of it, the expansion of it, the specific quality of a presence that neither crowds her nor withdraws from her. That holds its ground without holding her down. And that quality, the stillness, the safety, the emotional architecture that does not require her to be smaller, has no age attached to it, it is simply rare. And she recognized it in you. The question you walked in with was, am I too old for this to be possible? That was the wrong question. Not because age is irrelevant, but because it was pointing you toward the wrong measurement. The right question is simpler and deeper. Have I become someone whose presence allows another person to feel more fully themselves? If the answer is yes, and for many men who have lived honestly through their years, it is yes, then what you carry is not a liability. It is something genuinely worth being near, and the right woman does not just tolerate that. She recognizes it in her body before her words can catch up. You do not need to announce this. You do not need to explain it or prove it or package it for her approval. You only need to be it and to stop apologizing for the years that made it possible. What you carry is not a remnant of something that was better earlier. It is what was always being built. And the men who understand this, who stop competing on terms that were never theirs to begin with, and simply allow the weight of what they have become to be present, discover something that the noise never prepared them for. That it was never the gap she was measuring, it was always the gravity. If this opens something for you, a different way of seeing yourself in this, a quieter and more grounded frame, there is more here worth exploring. The next step is not strategy. It is understanding more deeply what she's looking for before she can name it herself. That is what the rest of this channel is built on. Stay close. Psychology Couple Circle.